Okay, hello everyone. Today is the second day of ABP.NET conference, and we are with Hannes for the keynote speech. He's going to talk about the Mario Kart guide to building a career, and it will be about the soft skills for developers. And before we begin to the keynote speech, I would like to introduce you to the Ruffles for today. Let me share my screen and then we will hop on. Okay, well, today we will do a giveaway and the winners will be announced at the very last of the conference session, which is Ruffles in closing. So be sure to check that out. We will give away 5 ABP commercial personal licenses plus ebooks, and JetBrains give away 6 IDA coupons. And then from Pact, we will have 2 copies and 5 ebooks about hands-on Visual Studio 2022, Web API development with ASP.NET Core 8, .NET MAUI projects, and Mastering ABP Framework. And thanks to Hawaii, another sponsor, we will give away 5 Ragu React for ABP commercial licenses and 5 more gift vouchers worth $100. So be sure to check that out, and the winners will be drawn from the attendees. So thank you so much. We are all with you, Hannes.
Hello, good morning. And I would say welcome to this conference day, and I'm honored to be kicking this off as the keynote speaker. I'm honored to be asked to do this. And today, I'm going to talk about how you manage your career. And as a frame of reference, we're going to be using Mario Kart. Now, the way that this is going to work is I'll tell you a little bit about managing careers because I have been coaching developers for more than a decade now. And Mario Kart, why did I choose Mario Kart for this talk? When I first made this talk, it came out pretty boring. It came out as a whole bunch of career advice that wasn't fun to listen to at all. And this was in a period when my kids had first gotten a Switch, and we started playing Mario Kart as a family. So because of that, I used Mario Kart for this talk. Now, when we think about careers, one of the first things you're always going to think about is success. And now comes the time for me to introduce myself a little bit. Now, when I talk about success, I could introduce myself in this way. I'm Hannes. I am the head of learning and development for a company called Axxes in Belgium. I am the coach for 66 .NET developers at our company. My better half's name is Barbara. I have 3 beautiful children. The oldest one is becoming a teenager now. And I did 2 degrees at the same time when I graduated college. I'm an international conference speaker. I can call myself a Microsoft MVP. And in my free time, I love to build guitars. Now, that's a pretty successful image to paint. If I describe myself this way, you will think that I'm a very, very successful person. Now, I can also describe myself in this way. I'm Hannes. I'm not really the best programmer. I've got a bunch of programmers on my team who are way better at the technical stuff than I am. When I was in high school, I was a nerd, still am a nerd. I was bullied because that's what happens with nerds in high school. Before I was successful in college, I actually failed my exams for 2 years in a row. I'm a little bit overweight. I had a severe burnout and depression in 2012. And I used to need glasses, and I've solved that problem by getting bionic implants. I actually have implant contacts in my eyeball, so I would say that I'm now part cyborg. But before I had those, I needed glasses to be able to see. And sometimes when my kids misbehave, I do lose my temper, and that feels like failure too, because you shouldn't shout at your kids, right? So if I paint my own picture like this, you would say that I'm not the most successful person. And what I'm trying to tell you is that success is a matter of perspective. Because this one Hannes cannot exist without the other. They are both very much the same person. One is it is connected to the other very, very tightly, because I could only be successful because all of that other stuff that happened to me as well. And what you have to remember is that in this day and age, we tend to look at others through social media. And that is never a fair comparison, because if you're looking at somebody else's life through social media, what you're going to see from them is mostly the highs. Oh, this is a happy moment. I'm going to post it on social media. Sometimes when they feel depressed, they may post a low, but what you almost never see on social media is the business as usual days. The days where you get up in the morning, you go to work, you grind it out, you go back home, nothing fancy happens, right? And in your own life, you experience all of it. You have your own unedited footage and you're comparing it to somebody else's highlight reel. You're looking at somebody else's life through a highlight reel. And that always gives you a skewed perception. It also always makes you feel as if their life is way more interesting than yours. And I can guarantee you it probably is not. But it makes you realize that when you're looking at your life and defining your own success, comparing to others is not necessarily the best idea. Now let's get back to Mario Kart. Let's define success in Mario Kart. And if you're anything like me and you want to figure out what that means, you would go on a Google spree and you would end up on this website. This website is called MK Leaderboards. MK Leaderboards is a website where people compare their lap times on different Mario Kart tracks. And the overall rating of a person is basically the amount of milliseconds that they drive above the best lap time for a specific track, added up across all tracks. Now, when I first made this talk 4 or 5 years ago, Alberto was at the top of his game. He was at the top of the ranking. He still is. And weirdly enough, he got better because his ranking even dropped. There's also a nice 4th place for a guy called Thomas. He's in 6th now, so I'm going to keep this screenshot for now. But this is basically to figure out what success is. And when I see this, I wonder, how good is that Alberto guy really? Now, when I try to figure that out, another Google spree, and you find videos such as this one. And what you see happen is the way that this guy drives, it's nearly impossible for mere mortals like you and I. If we start playing Mario Kart, it is almost impossible to drive these lines and to be that precise. They really drive on the edge of every little track. So when you're comparing yourself to Alberto, that would never be fair. It's like comparing baby Mario in a submarine against Link on a motorbike. And if you're not familiar with Mario Kart, all the different vehicles, they have a little bit different driving characteristics, and all the characters have different ways of handling. So what you choose actually affects your driving characteristics. So when you would do the same in your career, and you look at that one person you admire, this is you. You're standing and you're looking at a mountain, and the person you are looking at, Alberto, he's already there. Now, let's say that tomorrow you start practicing Mario Kart and you start practicing really hard. What is going to happen is you are going to go through that valley, because only by practicing will you realize how good Alberto really is. And when you start climbing up that mountain, assuming that you ever get to the point where you saw Alberto today, Alberto will no longer be there because he will already be up there looking at the next hill to climb. And if you're a programmer, that means that you are comparing yourself to somebody like this. Somebody who still sits in their mom's basement programming probably 16 hours a day, because they have their mom taking care of the cooking and the homework and all and the laundry and stuff. And they don't have any social activities, and they invest all of their time in programming. And of course, they're going to advance really fast. But your life may look completely different. So when you compare yourself to somebody else, you have to wonder, did you start with the same amount of talent? Did you have the same experiences to get to the point where you are right now? Did you put in an equal amount of time? And did you spend that time with an equal amount of focus? And also, did you have the same opportunities to get to the point where you are today? And almost never are all of these factors the same. So it's never going to be a very fair comparison. So you just need to consider the bigger picture, because when you look at one specific skill, programming, it's never going to be fair. But if you look at your entire life, it might be very easy to describe why certain people are ahead of you in that one skill, because you also invested time in other things. Now, when you are trying to figure out what you want to do for your own career, well, we have to talk about goals. Because setting goals is always going to be a part of success. And the first thing you should actually wonder about when you're defining goals is not look at somebody else and say, I want to be like them. The first thing you should worry about is, where do you want your career to go? And I think a very good window to think about in this perspective is 3 to 5 years. I've been using this window for a long time when I'm coaching people, and 3 to 5 years is an excellent window. The reason for that is, in 3 to 5 years, our industry will have changed. IT is still moving very, very quickly. You will have changed. You will have found out about your likes and dislikes, and you maybe want to focus on other things. And also, you will learn a lot about the world around you, and maybe your direction will change as well. So 3 to 5 years, very good window. And you think about this and you define your direction. And I'm saying direction on purpose because it works like this in Mario Kart. In Mario Kart, when you're going the wrong way, you get that little arrow that tells you to turn back. And that is important because when you make your smaller career decisions, you should always hold them up to your direction. You should have your 3 to 5 year plan in mind when you're making smaller decisions and setting shorter term goals. Because 3 to 5 years is way too long to be setting goals. It's more of a general direction, like, let's say I want to move towards becoming an architect, or I want to move towards becoming a product owner, or whatever. So when you have that direction defined, you're going to start about goals. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to set goals. Now, I also play a little bit of chess. I'm going to tell you why I play chess in a moment, but I also play a little bit of chess. I'm not really good at it, right? If you look at my rating today, my rating is around 1100 on lead chess. That means that I'm in the 18th percentile, which means that 82% of chess players on that platform are better than I am, right? Not really good. Still, for me, in everything I wanted to achieve in chess, I've actually achieved all of my goals, weirdly enough. And that's because the reason I started playing chess is because my oldest son wasn't performing well in school because everything was a little bit too easy for him, and he never really had to work for something. And someday he came to me and he said, Hannes, I want to, well, he said, Daddy, I want to become a chess player. And I was like, good, this is an opportunity to let the kid work. So I started playing chess alongside him. And my only goal was to stay better than he was. And let me tell you, to stay ahead of a 7-year-old kid is extremely hard. They learn like a sponge. So I worked 3, 4, 5 times as hard as he did to become better at chess. And I was very successful because when in 2018 I started playing, I had a rating of around 800. It went up, but not so much. But I'm still ahead of my son. I'm still able to beat him in a game of chess. It's mainly because he didn't work so hard, but also, I mean, my goals have been reached. And I've also been teaching little kids in our chess club. I've reached my goals here. So your competition is not Alberto. It's also not Magnus Carlsen, who is the Alberto of chess. It's also, if you're a programmer, it's not going to be John Carmack or John Romero or whoever you admire as a programmer. You should look at yourself. You should compare yourself, Mario in a kart, to Mario in a kart. Ignore your Twitter heroes, ignore your colleagues, focus on yourself. Because as we already established, when you're looking at other people, the factors are always going to be different, and you'll never have the same reasons or the same opportunities to get to the same point. So when you think about your career, you should think in terms of goals that only apply to you. And Mario Kart also has a way of showing us how to set good goals. And that is SMART. And I know if you've heard about SMART before, it's a bit cringy. You've probably heard this in some self-management course, but if you haven't, setting good goals is extremely important. Your goals have to be very specific. Get better at Mario Kart is never going to be a very good goal. But what you could do is, I want to get better at a certain track. That is a lot better and a lot more specific. It also needs to be measurable. Get better at a certain track isn't good enough. You need to specify which lap time you are aiming for so that you can know exactly if you have reached your goal or not. When you can drive under that lap time, that's when you have reached it. It needs to be achievable. If you take Alberto's lap time for your Mario Kart track, well, that's never going to be achievable unless you're already close to that level. If you were on that screenshot of mine, probably then that would be a good goal. But if you're a beginner, it never will be. It also needs to be relevant, and that is where your direction comes into play. You have made your 3 to 5 year plan, and the short-term goals that you set for yourself, they should play into that. And it's something I have seen a lot in junior developers. Their career goes all over the place. They want to do all the different things, and it means that they're moving left and right more than they are moving ahead. They're building a very broad set of skills, but they're not necessarily always going closer towards their goal. So when you set short-term goals, think about whether this helps you to achieve your direction. And also make it time-based, which forces you to evaluate at a certain deadline whether you have reached your goal or not. It gives you a little bit of time pressure to achieve your goal, but also when you reach the time and you haven't completed your goal, it really helps you to think about why that is, and whether you should either adjust the goal, throw it away, or something else, right? And for a lot of people, if they set their goals like this, that will work and they will know what to do. But for some people, that goal may still seem daunting. And for those people, my tip would be, look at your goal and think about how it looks like to have achieved your goal. And then think about what the smallest little step is today that you can take towards your goal. And that little step will become your micro goal for today. If you struggle with the bigger picture and it is daunting and you get blocked because it seems like it's too much work and you'll never get there, doing this little mental exercise, what is the smallest step I can take today, is extremely valuable. Because a career is not a sprint. A career is always going to be a marathon. And the only thing that really matters is that you keep moving. If you can keep moving forward, you will grow. So take a small step every day, or take several of these small steps in a day. If you think about, like, what can I do for the next hour that gets me ahead? Well, that will work too. And you can do that a couple of times in a day. Now, if you're in IT, chances are that a lot of your goals are going to evolve around learning. And there are very many different ways to learn. You can learn by taking a framework and hacking away with it. Let's say you just download ABP framework and you start playing with it. That's one way to learn. You can also play multiplayer, meaning you will pair program or mob program and learn from others around you. You can also look at videos or blog posts online and learn from those, or come to an online conference like today's, right? And some people prefer reading books, which is great as well. Find out what works for you. Everybody learns differently. And some methods work well for you, but they won't work well for others, and the other way around. So find out what your way of learning is. Also think about at which pace you are learning. Because if you play Mario Kart at 50cc, it's very easy to win a race. Even if you've never played Mario Kart, if I let you play at 50cc, you will be winning races in no time. Now, on the other hand, if you play 200cc, it's going to be almost impossible, unless you're already really good, to actually win anything. And what happens then, for those of you who are not familiar with Mario Kart, if you're driving at the back of the race, you often get this power up. It's the bullet bill. And what the bullet bill does, it transforms you into a cannonball and it takes you to the front of the race. And maybe you will win a race that way, but you will not have achieved it by yourself and you will not necessarily have learned anything either. And this is what happens in your jobs as well. If you are in way over your head and trying to learn too many things at the same time, somebody else is going to have to be your bullet bill. And that's usually the team around you. They will pick up your slack and they will push you forward and they will carry you, but you're not really learning at the pace you should be learning. So it's very important to pick a pace where it's almost possible to win, a little bit outside of the comfort zone. So let's say you play 100 cc's, and at some point you will feel like you're almost there. You'll come in second in the race. You've almost completed your goal. And when you've almost completed that goal, you can taste the victory. It gives you an extra push of motivation, and you will push through to reach your goal. And that is how learning happens. You go a little bit outside of your comfort zone and you try to control the situation. And when you're doing this, you've got your directions, you've got your goals, you are learning things. There are a whole bunch of things that can still get in your way. The first one of them is imposter syndrome. Now, I'm not going to make this talk about imposter syndrome, but imposter syndrome is when you feel like you're a fraud. You do not deserve that new role that you've gotten. You do not deserve that promotion that they gave you. You do not deserve the pay raise you've gotten. All of those things, when people ask for our technical opinion and we think that we are not the ones to answer that question, that is probably imposter syndrome showing up. Now, imposter syndrome is quite complex, and there are nice conference talks out there that you can Google on YouTube. If you would Google the talks by Melissa Houghton or Heather Dawning, you will find great talks on battling imposter syndrome as a software developer. But it's important to realize that this happened, and why I put it in this talk. You will feel like Bowser is hiding inside Princess Peach to try and eat you, because you are not qualified to do the thing that you are doing. Now, let me tell you, in most environments, people are not in the business of handing out promotions for free. If you were handed a promotion, you probably deserved it. If you were given a pay raise, you probably deserved it. Now get back to work and focus on being the best you that you can be, because imposter syndrome is just telling you that you don't deserve this, but you definitely do. Now, the second thing that can happen that gets in your way, and it happened to me, is you can get off track. And in Mario Kart, it's very easy to get off track when you're driving Rainbow Road. Now, I like the original Rainbow Road on the Super NES more than I like the one in Mario Kart 8. But Rainbow Road is made to make you fall off. And when do you fall off? It's not when you're carefully driving in the middle of the road. No, it's when you're pushing and trying to do a good job and you're moving forward. So when you're focused, when you're pushing hard, when you're reaching your goals, when you're achieving things, that is when burnout is actually closest around the corner. And before you know it, you drop off the track. It could be something that happens. It could be losing a loved one, or something that happens to your employer, or your relationship that ends, or you hit depression for other reasons, or just like you pushed a little bit too hard and at some point it breaks. And until the time that I had my own depression and burnout, I believed that when things got hard, all I needed to do was push a little bit harder. Now, let me tell you that for 5 months in 2012, I wanted to do nothing more. I wanted to do nothing more than pick myself up and get going again. But I wasn't able to do that. If my doctor would have told me the first week that I was going to be home for 5 months, I would probably not even have stayed home. I would have dug myself an even deeper hole. And at some point, you're going to have to take care of yourself. Things will spiral out of control. And if this happens, you're going to need help. For me, it happened when I had just made coach at Axxes. My first kid was 1 year old. We were renovating our house. I was working really hard at work and achieving all of my goals. And all of those things together, everything just collapsed. And I was so lucky to have people around me to help me, but somebody is going to need to fish you out. And in Mario Kart, you get this little guy on a cloud who uses his fishing line to put you back on the track. But in real life, you're gonna need to get out as well. And for me, it took a lot of things. My partner supported me very well. I went to a psychologist, I took antidepressants, it took me exercising way more. And the good thing was that my employer never pushed me back deeper. When I heard them on the phone, they only asked me, like, hey, how are you doing? How can we help? They never asked me, when are you coming back? Are you ready to come back? We have work for you. No, never any of that. And that helped a lot too. Now, when this happens, and why do I put this in this talk? When this happens, realize that it's going to take hard work to get out of it. And maybe you're going to have to drive easier tracks for a while. You're going to need to take it a little bit easier in your job to get accustomed and to build up your strength again to get going. But in the long term, this has not affected my career, and it won't affect yours either. This is just a period in life where it is rough. But when you conquer it, you can get going again and you can achieve your goals again like before. And luckily for me, I have become very aware to all the symptoms of burnout so I can take care of myself when things happen to me, but I can also recognize it in others and hopefully help them to avoid going through the same thing that I went through. And this is not a recommendation to burnout. I mean, nobody should ever go through that. If you can avoid it, please do. And that brings me to my environment, because as I said, my employer always calls me with nice questions, but my previous employer wasn't really like that. I was feeling like this all of the time. Somebody was throwing bananas at me, or blue shells, or red shells. And the reason that I felt like this in this job is not necessarily because the company was bad. It is because my goals were not aligned with the company's goals. And it's a very important thing to realize. And at some point, I made a 3 to 5 year exercise for myself. I did my first ever direction exercise for me. And then I went to discuss this with my boss. And the message I got after that conversation was that that was not something they were willing to support. And when I walked out of that meeting, both my boss and I both knew that I would look for a new job and that I would soon leave the company. And I did. And I'm happy I did, because I came to a place where my goals were aligned with the company's, where being me was certainly a strength. In the other company, I was always told to be quiet, do calm. I'm a very enthusiastic person, and people can hear me when I'm around the office. At my current job, nobody really cares that I'm loud, and I'm appreciated for the things that I do. And it's very important to find a good environment for yourself when you're looking for a job. Factors are, can you really be yourself? Do you like the people that you're working with? Can you learn from them? Are you able to achieve your own goals while doing your job? Because that's very important, aligning all those things. Is there a long-term plan for the company, and can you contribute to that long-term plan? And is the compensation okay for the work that you will be doing? And is everything comfortable? Do you have a proper desk? Are the workplaces well equipped? All that sort of stuff. Because when you are worrying about all of these factors, you are not focusing on your career. You're worrying about your environment. And it's super cheesy, but when you think about it, if you find the right employer, because you will be achieving your own goals and you will feel supported and you will be moving forward, you really bring out the best in each other, because your company will bring out the best in you and will push you forward. But because you're doing well, you are contributing more to the company than you otherwise would. It's a very good thing to be in the right place at the right time. And I feel like with software developers, one of the key points of frustration is often hardware. we are not getting the right laptop to do the work that we do. And for me, this is a pet peeve. I really hate it when people don't invest in the right hardware. But depending on where you are in the world, but I guess this is true for most of the world, the price of a laptop doesn't compare to a developer wage. So give your people good gear to work with. In Mario Kart, we also have hardware now. We have these augmented reality cars that can drive around your living room, and you can see the track on your own living room floor, which is pretty cool as well. But hardware for me is often a symptom in a workplace of other stuff that is going wrong. And the last thing that you'll have to remember, and this is very short, but it's very important to think about, is you should brand yourself. Because when you're achieving your goals and nobody knows about it, then it's very easy to still be overlooked to get a raise or to get a promotion or to get that project that you really want to do. And I know it feels counterintuitive because a lot of people feel like it is bragging. It doesn't have to be bragging. It's just make people aware of the things you've just accomplished. Use that little horn that you have in Mario Kart to spread the word on things that you have done. And what you will find, and this is important, if you tell people about your ambitions, you will find out that most of the time they want to help you instead of blocking you. Because the whole reason I am a speaker is because I started telling people that I wanted to become a speaker. And I also started telling conference organizers that that was what I want. And a year later, after I started telling people, I got my first talks, and that is how this all went on. So tell people about your ambitions, share them with others, and they will help you move forward, and you will probably help them, and you're all stronger together. Now, put yourself in the spotlight, see that people know what you do. Now, that brings me to the end of today's keynote. I'm already 2 minutes over time, so I'm going to make a very, very short recap of what I told you. The things I really want you to remember is this. Success is a matter of perspective. You will never look at your own career the same as you look at the one from somebody else. Find where you want to go in 3 to 5 years, because that's going to be your direction, and that's going to be the mirror that you hold up when you're making other decisions. Set your goals smart, because that's the only way that you can easily achieve them, and make sure that you measure whether you actually achieve what you wanted to do. Learn a little bit outside of your comfort zone, not too far, but not inside your comfort zone either. Find a good environment to be in. Find a place where you're comfortable and where people around you amplify you instead of holding you back. Work on your branding. Make sure that people know what you did, because it's super important. Battle your inner imposter syndrome and recognize when others are struggling with imposter syndrome and encourage them to achieve their goals as well. And remember that life is more important than any job in the world. If you feel like you're struggling, if stuff is going on at home, it is okay to take it a little bit slow. Avoid that burnout, because that will be no fun. My name is Hannes. I'm the head of learning and development at a company called Axxes in Belgium. This is my Twitter handle and my ICQ number. Feel free to reach out. My DMs are open. I'm a Microsoft MVP in developer technologies. Now, I'm trying to make ICQ great again. For those who remember, it was one of the first instant messenger apps. They still have a smartphone app that you can use to get in touch with people. And if you use that number, you can actually contact me. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your APB conference, and that you learn a lot of great things today that you can apply in your careers. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you so much. It was an insightful and one of the, the best way to start to the conference. And I believe anyone could learn from it. So thank you so much for this amazing beginning of the second day and the last day of AVP.NET conference. We appreciate it big time.
You're very welcome, and I'm very happy to be invited to do this.
Same here. The pleasure is all ours. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next sessions, you guys. Have a great rest of the conference. Bye.
Bye-bye.